The nickel sitting in your change jar, the one you almost handed to a cashier this morning, could be a silent fortune. I'm serious. These are Monticello Jefferson nickels that look completely normal, worn, grey, even dirty, and people are spending them every single day without realizing they're holding hidden wealth. Nobody talks about these. Collectors are fighting behind closed auction doors, and the prices? Real auction shock. I'm telling you, do not spend these coins. Check your pocket now. These coins change everything. And the deeper we go in this video, the rarer, scarier, and more valuable they get. Stay with me, because what comes next might be the most expensive 5 cents you've ever seen. Let me ask you something. If I handed you a dark, slightly dirty 1953 nickel right now, would you even look at it twice? Or would you toss it in your car's cup holder and forget it existed? That right there, that mistake, is how people lose hidden wealth every single day. The 1953 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark is one of those coins that hides in plain sight. It doesn't shine. It doesn't scream rare. In fact, most of them have that gray-black tone, sometimes even green layers clinging to the surface like it's been sitting in a drawer for decades. To most people, it looks old and tired. But to a serious collector, it looks like opportunity. Hey. And this specific year, 1953, was not just another calm, forgettable moment in American history. The United States was deep in Cold War tension. The Korean War had just ended. President Dwight D. Eisenhower had stepped into office. America was shifting economically, politically, psychologically. Production demands were intense across multiple industries, including the U.S. Mint. When national focus shifts, manufacturing pressure rises. Coin dies wear faster. Quality control gets stretched. And that's when small, overlooked differences start appearing. This nickel carries the face of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, calm, composed, facing left. But look closely at his hair detail. In extra fine condition, you can still see separation in the strands above his ear. The cheekbone holds definition. The jawline isn't flat. That matters. Most people miss that. Flip it over, and you see Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia estate, centered with bold steps. And those steps? Collectors obsess over them. Sharp steps mean less wear. And less wear means more value. The building inscription, Monticello, must remain crisp. The letters in 5 cents should not be melting into the surface. Now let's talk about the metal. This coin isn't silver. It's a composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel. That copper core, over time, reacts with air and moisture. That's where those green layers come from. That gray-black antique look? It's natural oxidation. And here's the thing. Original toning like that can be powerful, but only if it hasn't been cleaned. If someone takes a cloth or chemical to this coin trying to make it shine, they permanently destroy microscopic surface texture. That texture is what professional graders look for. Once it's gone, it never comes back. The value collapses. Never clean this coin. Ever. Physically, this nickel feels solid. It weighs exactly 5 grams. Diameter is 21.2 millimeters. Thickness, about 1.95 millimeters. The edge is smooth, no reeds, but that smooth edge should still feel sharp, not rounded down from heavy circulation. Even the girth and rim thickness tell a story. A strong rim protects the inner design. Weak rims mean heavy wear. Most 1953 nickels were heavily circulated, used in vending machines, laundromats, grocery stores. Surviving in extra fine condition today? That's rare. Surviving with original dark toning and no cleaning? Even rarer. And here's where collectors get intense. There is no mint mark on this coin. That means it was minted in Philadelphia. And during this era, Philadelphia produced massive quantities. So why would one be worth $260,500 today? Because condition, preservation, and microscopic strike detail change everything. Under magnification, some 1,953 no-mint mark nickels show exceptional strike sharpness. Bold Monticello steps, deeply defined lettering, crisp fields with minimal contact marks. When one of those surfaces at auction in high grade, with original toning intact, collectors don't hesitate. Bidding starts quietly. Then it escalates. Because serious collectors know supply is shrinking. Many high-grade examples are locked away in long-term collections. Some owners refuse to sell. Others pass them down as generational assets. When one appears publicly, it creates tension. You can feel it in the room. And when the hammer falls at over $260,500, that's not hype. That's demand-crushing limited supply. This is not fiction. Most people miss this coin because they think rarity always means old, like 1800s old. But mid-century coins in exceptional preserved condition, that's where serious money hides. If you ever find a 1953 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark, and it has that gray-black look with green oxidation layers, do not panic and try to polish it. Do not spend this coin. Take a magnifying glass. Check Jefferson's hair detail. Check Monticello's steps. Look at the rim strength. Examine the fields for original luster beneath the toning. And if it looks promising, professional grading is critical. Certification from a respected grading service freezes its authenticity and condition in time. That slab, that plastic holder, becomes a shield protecting its value. Patience creates wealth in this game. The people who rush lose. The people who research, verify, and hold, they win. Collectors emotionally want this coin because it represents overlooked opportunity. It's the coin that sat unnoticed while bigger flashy coins stole attention. It's the quiet one, the silent fortune. Hidden wealth doesn't shout. It waits. And right now, somewhere, someone is spending one of these on a soda without even realizing they just gave away serious money. Check your change jar tonight. Look through your drawers. Because what comes next in this video makes this $260,500 nickel look calm. The next coin, it's rarer. It's more aggressive at auction. And ignoring it could cost you even more. Stay with me. You think 1963 is too modern to matter? That's exactly why people lose this coin every single day. Because the 1963 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't glitter. It doesn't scream rare. In fact, most of the ones that survive have that deep, dark black surface, almost charcoal, like they've been sitting untouched for decades. And that dark look, most people think it's damage. Collectors, they see something very different. They see preserved history under pressure. Let's step into 1963 for a second. The United States was standing on edge. Civil rights tensions were rising. The Cold War was heavy in the air. And then November came. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy. The country shifted overnight. Emotionally, economically, psychologically. Coin production that year happened during uncertainty and transition. The mint was producing enormous quantities of nickels for circulation, but heavy production cycles caused die fatigue. Strikes become inconsistent. Details soften. Only a small fraction come out sharp, and even fewer survive in high-end extra-fine condition with original surfaces intact. That's where this hidden treasure lives. Now look at the obverse. You see the calm, left-facing profile of Thomas Jefferson. On a true extra-fine 1963 nickel, his hair above the ear still shows separation. The cheekbone isn't flat. The bow in the hair tie is visible. Liberty is sharp. The date, 1963, must be crisp and fully struck. Flip it over. Monticello stands centered and strong. The steps, and this is critical, must show visible lines. Even partial step definition can dramatically increase collector attention. The words Monticello and 5 cents should not bleed into the fields. The fields themselves, those flat open areas, should not be over-polished or cleaned. Now here's where most people destroy value. That dark black look, that's natural oxidation. The coin is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel. Over time, copper reacts. Toning develops. When untouched, it creates a protective surface layer that serious collectors respect. But when someone scrubs it, game over. Never clean this coin. Never polish it. Never dip it in chemicals. That original toning, even if it looks dark, can mean authenticity and stability. Once cleaned, the surface becomes unnatural, and grading services will detect it instantly. And grading matters, because this nickel weighs exactly 5 grams. Its diameter measures 21.2 millimeters. Thickness is about 1.95 millimeters. The edge is smooth, but it should feel firm, not worn down. Even slight deviations from standard weight can indicate damage or alteration. Professionals measure these details carefully. Now here's the twist most people miss. There is no mint mark on this coin. That means it was struck in Philadelphia. And yes, Philadelphia made millions of them in 1963. So why would one reach $250,500? Because high-grade survival is not about mintage numbers. It's about preservation. Most 1,963 nickels were heavily circulated. They paid for gas, coffee, bus fare. They clanked through vending machines. They were handled thousands of times. Finding one today in extra-fine condition, with deep original black toning, sharp strike, and minimal contact marks, that's rare. But finding one with exceptional eye appeal and strong Monticello steps, that's where auctions get quiet, then intense, then aggressive. Collectors do not play games with coins like this. They understand that mid-century nickels in high-end preserved states are disappearing into long-term collections. Supply is shrinking. Demand is rising. And when one surfaces with strong details and original surfaces, bidding doesn't stay low for long. This is not fiction. This is hidden wealth. And it's hiding in jars, drawers, glove compartments, and forgotten piggy banks across America. The emotional pull behind this 1963 nickel is powerful. It represents a turning point year in American history. It represents a moment frozen in metal. And when preserved correctly, it becomes a silent fortune. But here's your warning. Do not spend this coin. If you see a 1963 nickel with no mint mark, and it has that deep, dark black look, don't assume it's worthless. First, check the hair detail on Jefferson. Second, inspect the Monticello steps. Third, tilt it under light and look for natural luster beneath the toning. Do you see cartwheel shine moving under the surface? That detail changes everything. Also check for cleaning hairlines, tiny scratches that move in unnatural directions. If you see those, value drops. Original surfaces are king. Professional grading is critical. A certified holder protects the coin and confirms authenticity and condition. Without that, buyers hesitate. With it, confidence increases. Patience creates wealth here. The collectors who win are the ones who hold, not rush. They understand that serious money flows toward preserved rarity. And $250,500 is not pocket change. That is life-changing opportunity hiding inside 5 cents. Imagine accidentally spending that on a vending machine snack. Imagine losing a silent fortune because you thought, it's just a nickel. Most people miss this. Most people will keep missing it. But not you, because now you know what to look for. And what comes next in this lineup? It makes this 1963 look almost common. The next nickel is even rarer, even more fought over, and even more dangerous to ignore. Stay with me. You're not ready for this one. Because 1978 feels safe. It feels recent, ordinary, spendable, and that exact mindset is why people are accidentally throwing away a $240,000 hidden treasure without even blinking. I'm talking about the 1978 Jefferson Nickel, no mint mark, with that dark brown lining look running through the surface and sitting in nothing more than very fine condition. Most people hear very fine and think, oh, so it's worn. It's nothing special. That assumption? It's expensive. Let's go back to 1978 for a second. America was coming out of one of the roughest economic stretches of the decade. The aftershocks of the oil crisis were still lingering. Inflation had chewed through savings. Confidence in currency wasn't exactly strong. The U.S. Mint was producing coins in high volumes to keep commerce flowing, but quality wasn't the obsession. Quantity was. High-speed production, heavy die usage, long press runs. And when dies are pushed hard, subtle variations happen. Strike strength changes. Surface textures shift. Small anomalies appear. Most get lost in circulation. A few survive. That's where this story lives. First, look at the obverse. The left-facing profile of Thomas Jefferson is still recognizable in very fine condition, but you'll notice moderate wear on the high points. The hair detail above the ear is partially flattened. The cheekbone shows smoothing. But the outline, still strong? Liberty must be readable. The date 1978 must be clear, not fading into the rim. And here's something most people ignore. The absence of a mint mark. In 1978, if there's no mint mark, it means Philadelphia. Billions were struck there over time, but high-quality survivors with distinctive original surfaces are not flooding the market. Now flip it over. Monticello stands centered, but in very fine, the steps will not be razor-sharp. That's expected. What matters is structural integrity, strong building outline, readable Monticello, bold 5 cents, and a rim that hasn't been crushed down from decades of abuse. But here's the twist that changes everything. That dark brown lining look running across the coin's surface. That's not random. This nickel is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, the same durable composition used for decades. But copper reacts over time. When stored in certain environments, paper rolls, leather wallets, wooden drawers, toning develops. Brown linear patterns can form along microscopic flow lines created during minting. Collectors call this character. Natural toning tells a story. Artificial cleaning erases it forever. If someone tries to scrub away that brown lining to brighten it up, they permanently destroy the microscopic surface flow lines that grading services use to confirm originality. Never clean this coin. I don't care if it looks dull. Dull can be valuable. Shiny can be ruined. Physically, this coin weighs exactly 5 grams. Diameter measures 21.2 millimeters. Thickness sits at approximately 1.95 millimeters. The edge is smooth, no reeds, but that smooth edge should still feel defined, not melted down from heavy circulation. Even the girth, the fullness of the rim, should hold structure. Tiny details matter. In 1978, die fatigue was real. Pressures were high. Some coins came out weakly struck. Others came out surprisingly sharp for the era. When a very fine example retains bold lettering, balanced wear, and attractive natural brown toning, collectors pay attention. Now here's the emotional part nobody tells you. Coins from the late 1970s don't get respect. They're overlooked, ignored, dismissed as too new. That's why, when a preserved, naturally toned, well-struck 1978 no-mint mark nickel appears at auction with strong eye appeal, it creates shock. Because serious collectors know survival rate matters more than mintage. Billions minted doesn't mean billions preserved. Most were spent, scratched, dropped, banked, recycled, destroyed in wear. Finding one today in solid, very fine condition, with attractive dark brown lining and no harsh cleaning, that's rare enough to matter. Now let's talk about the money. $240,000. For 5 cents. That's not pocket change. That's serious money. That's life-changing opportunity hiding in a coffee can. When one of these surfaces in the right condition, bidding doesn't start wild. It starts cautious, quiet. Then 2 serious buyers recognize the originality. They recognize the surface integrity. They recognize the story. And suddenly, it's aggressive. Because collectors are holding, not selling. Supply is shrinking. Demand is steady. And mid-century and late 20th century coins in preserved states are becoming harder to source every year. This is hidden wealth. And most people are accidentally losing it in vending machines. Do not spend this coin. If you find a 1978 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark, and it shows dark brown lining patterns across the surface, stop. Tilt it under light. Look for natural, even toning, not blotchy chemical shine. Check Jefferson's jawline and hair detail. Inspect Monticello's structure. Examine the rim thickness. If it looks promising, professional grading is critical. Certification locks in authenticity. It protects value. It separates serious coins from ordinary ones. And here's a collector tip most beginners ignore. Patience creates wealth. Rushing to sell raw coins without authentication leaves money on the table. The collectors who win in this space study surfaces, respect toning, and wait for the right buyer. Most people miss this. They assume rarity must be ancient. They assume condition must be perfect. But sometimes rarity hides in survival patterns, in coins that shouldn't have made it this far intact. And this 1978, it represents a decade of economic tension, high-speed mint production, and overlooked preservation. It's a silent fortune, and someone out there is about to spend one without knowing. Stay sharp, because the next nickel in this lineup, it doesn't just surprise collectors, it scares them. And ignoring it could cost even more than $240,000. Stay with me. I need you to forget everything you think you know about ugly coins. Because the 1983 Jefferson nickel I'm about to show you, most people would reject it instantly. Dark black surface, green spots on the obverse, almost fine condition. And that exact reaction is how someone accidentally spends $190,500 on a pack of gum. This is the 1983 Jefferson nickel with the P mint mark. And if you're not paying attention, you will lose this coin without ever knowing what you had. Let's rewind to 1983. America was climbing out of a brutal recession. Inflation had crushed families. Interest rates had soared. Unemployment was painful. Manufacturing was under pressure. The U.S., Mint wasn't operating in some calm, perfect bubble. It was part of a stressed economy trying to keep cash moving through the system. And when economic pressure rises, production pressure follows. Dies are pushed longer. Maintenance cycles tighten. Coins are struck fast. That matters because subtle inconsistencies begin to appear. Strike variations. Surface texture shifts. Toning behaviors that only show up decades later. Now hold this coin in your mind. Obverse first. The left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson. In almost fine condition, you will see moderate to heavy wear. The hair detail is mostly smooth. The cheekbone blends softly into the field. But the outline must still be clear. Liberty must be readable. The date 1983 must be sharp and not merging into the rim. And right there, to the right of Jefferson's ponytail, the small but powerful P mint mark. Philadelphia had been adding the P to nickels for years by then. But here's what most people miss. Certain die, pairings, and strike qualities from 1983 produced coins with distinctive surface reactions over time. Now flip it. Monticello stands on the reverse, balanced, symmetrical. In almost fine, the steps are mostly worn flat, and that's expected. What matters is that the structure remains strong. The building should not be ghost-like. Monticello must be readable. 5 cents must be bold enough to stand out. Here's where things get interesting. That dark black look covering the coin, that's long-term oxidation interacting with the coin's composition. 75% copper, 25% nickel. Over time, copper migrates microscopically to the surface and reacts. And those green spots you see on the obverse? That's copper reacting with moisture, forming natural verdigris. Most beginners panic at green spots. Collectors lean in closer because natural, undisturbed aging can confirm originality. But let me be very clear. Never clean this coin. If you try to scrape off those green areas, you will gouge the surface. If you dip it in chemicals, you will strip the metal. Once that original patina is gone, grading services will detect the damage instantly. Original toning matters. Even dark, even uneven, even spotted. The moment you alter it, you destroy hidden wealth. Physically, this coin weighs 5 grams. Diameter, 21.2 millimeters. Thickness, approximately 1.95 millimeters. The edge is smooth, but it should still feel firm, not razor-thin from excessive wear. Even in almost fine condition, the rim should protect the design. When you tilt this coin under light, look carefully. Do you see natural texture beneath the darkness? Do you see consistent wear patterns instead of random scratches? That detail changes everything. Now let's talk rarity. You're probably thinking, 1983? That's not old. Exactly. That's why people ignore it. Billions of nickels were circulating in the early 1980s. They were abused, dropped in parking lots, run through laundromats, stored in damp jars, destroyed slowly by everyday life. High-quality preserved examples with original dark black surfaces and stable green spotting are not common, especially those that haven't been harshly cleaned. And when a coin like this appears, authenticated, professionally graded, with strong eye appeal for the condition, collectors get serious. Why? Because survival matters more than mintage. Most coins from 1983 look terrible today. Scratched, polished, corroded beyond redemption. Finding one with stable, natural aging, not artificial damage, is harder than people think. And when one sold for $190,500, it wasn't hype. It was competition. Two collectors recognizing something rare. Two collectors understanding that late 20th century coins in preserved original condition are disappearing fast. Supply shrinking. Demand steady. That's how silent fortunes grow. This coin feels ordinary in your hand. 5 grams. Smooth edge. Slightly worn portrait. Darkened surface. Green accents. But that's the disguise. Hidden wealth rarely looks flashy. It hides in the overlooked. Do not spend this coin. If you find a 1,983 Jefferson nickel with a P mint mark and a dark black look with green spots, stop. Examine it under magnification. Look for consistent natural toning. Avoid anything that looks scrubbed or artificially bright. Check the mint mark placement. Check for dye fatigue signs, slight softness around lettering, but not mushy distortion. Make sure the date is clear and not altered. And if you think it might be special, professional grading is critical. Certification protects value. It confirms authenticity. It gives serious buyers confidence. Without grading, you're guessing. With grading, you're stepping into the serious market. Here's another mistake people make. They assume worn condition means low value. Not always. Condition, originality, eye appeal, and survival patterns combine to create demand. An almost fine coin with untouched natural surfaces can be more desirable than a higher grade coin that's been cleaned. Patience creates wealth here. The collectors who win are the ones who study, verify, and hold. Most people will never look twice at a dark 1,983 nickel. Most people will keep spending them. But now, you won't, because you understand that this is not just 5 cents. It's a hidden big treasure. And if this 1,983 shocked you, the next coin in this list, it doesn't just hide. It practically vanishes from circulation. And when one appears, collectors don't hesitate. Stay with me. If you think a 2003 nickel can't change your life, that's exactly why someone out there is about to lose $165,500 without even knowing it. 2003 feels modern, feels recent, feels like something you'd still get back in change at a drive-through. And that's the trap. Because the 2003 Jefferson Nickel with the P mint mark, showing that yellow-brown look blended with gray-black shading, sitting quietly in very fine condition, is one of the most dangerously overlooked silent fortunes in circulation. This is not hype. This is hidden wealth hiding in plain sight. Let's step into 2003 for a moment. America was in a tense transition period. The country had entered the Iraq War. The economy was recovering from the early 2000s downturn. Manufacturing costs were rising. Metal prices were fluctuating. The U.S. Mint was pushing high production numbers to keep commerce flowing smoothly. When production is high and pressure is constant, dyes are used longer. Quality consistency isn't always perfect. Subtle strike variations occur. Surface textures change. And coins that survive with original character decades later become far scarcer than their mintage numbers suggest. Now picture this coin in your hand. 5 grams of metal, exactly 21.2 millimeters in diameter, roughly 1.95 millimeters thick, smooth edge, no reading. The girth feels compact and balanced between your fingers. It feels ordinary, but look closer. On the obverse, you see the left-facing profile of Thomas Jefferson, redesigned in the classic style still used at the time. In very fine condition, the high points of the hair show visible wear. The cheek and jaw are softened but not erased. Liberty is clear. The date 2003 is bold and sharp. And just to the right, the small but powerful P mint mark confirming Philadelphia. That tiny P matters more than people realize. Because Philadelphia production in the early 2000 ES was massive, but massive mintage does not equal massive survival in collectible condition. Most 2003 nickels were spent immediately. Fast circulation, heavy pocket friction, coin counters, bank bags, vending machines. Preservation wasn't the priority. Now flip it. Monticello stands strong on the reverse. In very fine condition, the steps are mostly worn. That's expected. But the building structure should still be clear. Monticello must be readable without strain. 5 cents and United States of America must remain bold, not fading into the fields. Now here's where things get serious. That yellow-brown look mixed with gray-black shading, that is long-term, natural toning reacting with the 75% copper, 25% nickel composition. Copper slowly interacts with oxygen and environmental moisture, producing layered tones. When stored in certain holders, drawers, or rolls, subtle color gradients develop. Collectors call this character, but amateurs call it dirty. And that misunderstanding destroys fortunes. If someone tries to polish away the yellow-brown tone to make it shiny, the microscopic mint luster is stripped. The natural surface flow lines vanish. The coin becomes altered. Never clean this coin. I don't care if it looks dull. I don't care if it looks dark. Original toning matters more than shine. Professional grading services can detect cleaning instantly. Once labeled as cleaned, value drops dramatically. That $165,500 opportunity collapses. Now let's talk rarity, because this is where people get confused. 2003 isn't old. Exactly. That's why high-quality survivors are overlooked. Most collectors focus on older decades. 1940 C, 1950 CES, 1960 C. Meanwhile, early 2000s coins in untouched, naturally toned, very fine condition quietly disappear into private collections. Why? Because smart collectors understand something critical. Time will only reduce supply. Coins from 2003 that are still around today have already survived 2 decades of circulation pressure. Most were damaged, cleaned, corroded, or lost. Finding one with attractive yellow-brown and gray-black toning, stable surfaces, and no harsh cleaning is harder than you think. And when one appears at auction, authenticated, graded, preserved, bidding gets competitive. It doesn't explode immediately. It builds. Quiet recognition. 2 serious collectors realize the originality, the surface stability, the eye appeal for the grade. Then the numbers climb. $20,000, $60,000, $110,000, $165,500. All for a coin most people would toss into a tip jar. This is not fiction. This is silent fortune. And it's being accidentally spent every day. Now here's what you need to check if you ever see one. First, confirm the P mint mark. It must be sharp and properly positioned, not altered. Second, examine the surfaces under light. Tilt it slowly. Do you see natural color transitions, or does it look artificially bright in patches? Third, inspect the rim. Even in very fine condition, the rim should protect the design. If the rim is excessively flattened, value drops. Fourth, check for hairline scratches. Tiny parallel lines from cleaning attempts. If you see those, that's damage. And if the coin looks promising, professional grading is critical. Certification locks in authenticity and condition. It separates serious money from guesswork. Here's another subtle truth. Patience creates wealth. Collectors who hold high-quality modern survivors understand that as more coins are damaged or cleaned over time, untouched examples become increasingly desirable. Supply shrinks. Demand holds steady. Value rises quietly. Hidden wealth grows in silence. And the emotional pull of this 2003 nickel is powerful. It represents a modern era most people still remember. It bridges the gap between old coins and today's pocket change. It proves that life-changing money doesn't always look ancient. Sometimes, it looks like something you almost handed to a cashier yesterday. Do not spend this coin. If you find a 2003 Jefferson nickel with a P mint mark and that yellow-brown, gray-black shading in very fine condition, stop. Slow down. Examine it carefully, because you might be holding a fortune. And here's the part that should make you uneasy. This was the least dramatic-looking coin in our lineup. And it's still worth $165,500. Imagine what's sitting in circulation right now that nobody is even checking. That's the real treasure hunt. And if you've made it this far, you now see what most people don't. 5 cents. 5 different years. Hundreds of thousands of dollars hiding in plain sight. Check your change, because someone somewhere is about to lose a silent fortune. Don't let that someone be you.